Well, the new Hell Let Loose trailer is out, and I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. You see, when the roadmap came out earlier this year, the excitement felt by many was, well, huge. The British were coming, there would be new game modes, and with this also came a lot of fluff and a lot of questions. But first, let's start with this. When you say the Hell Let Loose community is passionate, that is an understatement. And when you are a die-hard Hell Let Loose player, well, you get blinded by the new additions, and you can see that starting to change. Team 17's takeover of Hell Let Loose from Black Matter to date has been a disaster of Hiroshima proportions. But what did we expect from a dev whose most popular game to date has been a war game centered around worms? And although Worms was a commercial success, it is a fictional universe where anything goes. While the Hell Let Loose universe is vast in its historical accuracy, and this is where Team 17 has drastically dropped the ball. Let's look at the historical inaccuracies they have introduced to date, and we can look at that before moving into the logistics of how things could work in the future. But to be honest, the warning signs have been there since the start of 2023. First, let's look at the Winter War. If you look at the framework of Hell Let Loose being a World War II game, this battle is out of place. The battle between the Soviets and the Finns was tantamount to a proxy war that was a prequel or running alongside the battles that were to come across Europe. In August 1939, Hitler and Stalin entered into a non-aggression pact, which allowed both German and Soviet expansion into Poland. And by extension, Stalin saw the opportunity to move into Finland at the same time. With the Soviets being the aggressor in this conflict, Finland was no different than Poland, and other nations defending itself from the Nazis. At this point, both Hitler and Stalin were working in unison. How does this relate to Hell Let Loose? Well, the game focuses on the Nazis as the aggressor, trying to create the Third Reich. The Allies, consisting of the Americans, the British, and the Soviets, are the combatants stopping the Nazi expansion. This is where the disconnect comes in. People have to keep in mind, during the Winter War, there were many foreign fighters from Estonia, Hungary, Italy, Denmark, Norway, Poland, and hell, even the historically neutral Sweden. You also saw support from the UK and France, which brought much needed supplies, weapons, and ammunition. Now, to break things down into the simplest of terms, Hell Let Loose needs to be the Allies, the American, British Commonwealth, and Soviet forces, versus the axis of Germany and Italy. Now, I know I'm excluding Japan here because it's my belief Japan is the basis for Hell Let Loose 2, but that's a story for another day. You might say, well, how is this not historically accurate? Well, it doesn't fit into the game's premise. This would be like adding the Spanish Civil War, where the Nazis supplied Franco with arms and would essentially test their equipment and battle strategies in support of a leader with similar ideology. It's not part of World War II, and neither was the Winter War. This brings us to Polish forces. The roadmap referred to the Battle of Danzig, which left me and some others scratching our heads. The plan was to introduce a battle in which 52 people were killed and involved little to no infantry at all. This was clarified, though, in a video release along with the roadmap, stating that it would actually be the famous post office battle, which was an interesting statement at the time because although this conflict happened in Poland, it didn't involve any Polish infantry. A brief history of the battle that took place on the 1st of September 1939 was between the Free City of Danzig and their police department, supported by the Germans, who would attempt to take control of the post office because it was a strategic location close to a Polish military outpost. At 4 a.m., the Germans cut the phone lines and the electricity, so the Danzig police could begin their assault. The assault lasted for 15 hours, and it was tragic, with 56 postmen and their families repelling the advances. And in the end, 8 were killed, 14 wounded, 38 were captured. Those who were captured were court-martialed and executed. So what is missing? Well, the Polish forces. In total, the number of Polish forces at the post office that day, well, it was 1. Konrad Gierski, who was an Army Reserve sub-lieutenant. The goal of the Polish people in the post office that day was to hold off any advance and attempt to take control of the post office until Polish troops arrived. But they never did. Now, some of you might say to me, what does this have to do with anything? It's a game. Well, another thing I've learned about the Hell Let Loose community, and what also attracted me to Hell Let Loose, was the historical accuracy that led to an immersive experience and provided a small sense of what it would have been like to fight in World War II. Once you remove the historical accuracy, how is it different than any other FPS shooter? This leads us into the latest trailer that was released this week with even more inaccuracies, and I'm sure you've seen that all across YouTube. Leaving the graphical mistakes aside, the trailer feels more like a Call of Duty Reborn approach rather than the historical accuracy that the Hell Let Loose community has come to expect. From the time of day when the paratroopers dropped, to their location, right down to the fact that the 101st Airborne that was touted on the roadmap is non-existent. And don't even get me started on the issues with the British release and my anger personally as a Canadian that they scaled it back from the Commonwealth. But I digress. It feels like Team 17, in an attempt to expand the game to the larger masses, is sacrificing what made the game great: history. While history does offer some limitations, World War II was a conflict that set the course of history to where we are today. Team 17's lack of detailed attention to the history of this conflict is mind-boggling, and it feels like they're more focused on expanding the player base into console gaming while simultaneously giving the finger to the existing player base that made the game worth tens of millions that they paid for it. Now, we've looked at the historical inaccuracies. Let's just take a brief look at the logistics that seem to be problematic from the outside looking in. And I say from the outside looking in because there's really been no communication on any of this and how it's going to work. With 2 new game modes coming, Objective Mode in July and Skirmish Mode in December, the lack of communication from Team 17 is, to be honest, unbelievable. Will these game modes be smaller? 20v20, 25v25, 30v30. There's been zero mention of this that I can remember. And how is this problematic? Well, the game relies on privately owned servers. For someone who's currently running a server, what needs to be done for July? Will they need to have multiple servers to accommodate the different volumes of players per game mode? You won't be able to go from a standard 50v50 game on Utah Beach, for example, to an objective mode without kicking half the lobby. Maybe the new game modes are 50-50, but that would create an entirely different set of issues. And if that is the case, we do that now in seeding rules, fighting over the middle point. So, really, what's different? So, what is the final conclusion to this? Well, we will have to wait and see, to be honest. And at this point, all we can do is speculate. But from all the visuals to date, the outlook does not feel promising. Team 17 has taken the ball from Black Matter and fumbled it at almost every turn. And why does it feel like this is happening? Well, it could be numerous reasons. Personally, I feel it's driven by what makes the world go round today. Money. Team 17 bought Hell Let Loose at its peak, making an investment in a game at its highest point. And they're making moves that feel more like recouping what they've spent versus what is best for the game. When the roadmap was released, I speculated that the British update would be a paid DLC, and I was wrong. I have been very outspoken that we will see more paid DLC offerings in the future. And maybe they should have made the British update a paid DLC, because it would have allowed Team 17 to recoup money spent on the acquisition of the game and might have stopped turning the game into what it feels like, a sellout. For those music lovers out there that are older, think of Hell Let Loose like Metallica's Black Album from 1993. And yes, I know I'm dating myself here, but this is the best way for me to describe the state of Hell Let Loose right now. If you are a fan of And Justice for All, Ride the Lightning, Master Puppets, etc., you hated the Black Album. Yet, it did expose the band to a whole new audience. They went from metal to rock to grunge. And the question for Team 17 is, are they willing to alienate its current fan base in search of new game players? New people coming into the game. Are they willing to sacrifice the people that brought them to this point? And only time will tell. If you made it to the end, I want to thank you very much for watching, and be sure to leave your thoughts below, because I would love to hear them, and I will respond or try to respond to everyone I can. If you haven't, please hit that subscribe button as well. And in conclusion, I personally feel that Hell Let Loose community deserves better than what they're getting. And for a player base as passionate and loyal as this one, I really hope Team 17 gets their act together before it's too late. Until next time, peace, love. I will see you next time.